Before I demonstrate in Grammarly what are the features that are allowed and not allowed, I wanted to give you a brief summary of these, the way that we've described it in our policy on Grammarly use. So there are several ways in which you can use Grammarly in our courses, except for the business communication and English composition, as I had already mentioned. So the first is the most basic way that people use it to find spelling, grammar, punctuation, and formatting errors and to correct those. Related to that is to have the use of a replacement word or a small number of alternative words. And then finally, to suggest a minor edit to a single sentence to improve clarity. So in the demonstration in a moment, you'll get to see what some of these look like. And then what's not allowed is the use of Grammarly's generative text options, which may be called generative AI, depending on the version that you have. Specifically, one of those is to generate text to include in your paper. Also, it can be more basically just to rewrite or add entire paragraphs or sections of your paper, which I'll show you what that looks like. On the pro version of Grammarly, it can also be to create an entire paper using prompts, which you would then copy and paste. And if you're using the version of Grammarly, if you're using it in a legitimate way, one of the three ways that I described above as allowed uses, you would need to say at the bottom of your paper something saying, I use Grammarly to approve my writing for this assignment, including the followed allowed features, and then list ones of these three that you used. And then also write the sentence, I did not use any of the not allowed functions or any other generative AI tools like ChatGPT to generate text for this assignment unless cited as required. So we don't allow the generative text from Grammarly, but there are some cases in which you could use ChatGPT or similar tools for a brief citation. So and with that, let's show what this looks like in practice, which we talked about. If I go into Grammarly, here's what it looks like. I have a sample paper which has some errors in it of various types. I can click on that. And what you're going to first see is this screen that says set goals, tailored writing suggestions. And the tailored writing suggestions, what that essentially means is AI. So that's something that we're not going to want to do since the AI is not allowed. So I'll uncheck the show set goals when I start a new document option and click done. And then that's going to address that as one of the things that is not allowed according to our policy. To show the other one, the second one is this plagiarism and AI text check that actually uses AI to check for AI and for plagiarism, and it doesn't necessarily do so accurately either. So that's also not allowed either as a free trial or if you have the Grammarly Pro version. Then there's also a lot of their, at least as of the making of this video in the fall 2024, a lot of their generative AI tools are grouped under this generative AI button. So when you're in there and you click on that, you can highlight something and it'll basically rewrite text for you. And this is not allowed because, as I said in the earlier part of this video, this can make it inaccurate. This doesn't give you a deeper understanding of the material, and it also can be flagged by our AI plagiarism software. So even though they say, oh, you can acknowledge it, that essentially is having the computer do your work for you, and that defeats the purpose of learning in our courses. So there's also some other things under the generative AI, like more ideas, where you can even draft an outline and do all kinds of more extensive things. that would definitely fall into the not allowed because it's essentially writing your paper for you. However, there are legitimate ways of using um, Grammarly. So I'm going to close out of that generative AI button. I'm going to show them. It's the most obvious legitimate thing is these ones where it's a matter of correctness, whether that's spelling or grammar. And you can look and you can see what they think is correct versus what you had in your paper and accept those as you go along. Like spell check, that's very obvious, and that's something that you could get in Google Docs or in Word as well. For these, remove the phrase for clarity. Clarity is what they have in blue, so that's more a matter of style rather than what's actually has to be done. And that's why it's a pro feature. And sometimes those can actually be generated by AI depending on how many words it's changing. But as we said in the policy, it's okay if you're only having a few words being changed. So we can accept forever that. We can accept, for example, that change. But even though it thinks that's more clear, that may actually not be more clear. So you have to consider also whether these things are really giving you the best suggestions because it's really just a computer doing it. Change the wording. You can think, oh, does this actually make sense? Is made up of versus comprises. Comprises is a slightly more technical word. So maybe that doesn't actually make sense. Let's just focus on the correctness things for now. So I'm not going to accept all the ones on the spelling because you've seen how that works. Article usage, basically, the word the was missing. That's fine to do. This is actually a matter of style. Sometimes people will have a comma in a series of three. Sometimes people don't. You just have to be aware which makes sense. Here's another rephrase. They think this is correctness. I think it's that's a judgment call. It's only a few words though, so that would be allowed if you wanted to do that. Change the verb form. Childhood is the stage where inferiority feelings start. That was a good suggestion by them. That was important to do. And social interests and communal goals, that's two different things. What really drive behavior instead of drives? Yes, that needs to be corrected. And that's fine because that's just a letter in one word. Change the verb form. Stages. Stages is plural, it's shape. So yeah, again, that needs to agree. Verb problem. Oh, this is an interesting one. Word misuse. Effect versus effect. It got that. In summary, we did a lot of more minor edits. And so therefore, according to our standards, we could say we use this change, we use this change, and we use this change. And I think that would be the case in most of the time for people's papers. But I hope that this has been helpful for you, not just in seeing how to use Grammarly, but also what is allowable with it, but also in the process of editing a paper in general. And these kind of tools, you can do a lot of this in Microsoft Word and Google Docs as well, and just read your work aloud and have other people read your work aloud. And as you're listening to it, then, well, you got it in front of you, edit it and think, is this really the most clear way that I can make these points?